Hello, welcome to episode 105 of the GVGCast. I'm your host this week, Steve Bowling, and as you can see, I'm joined by my good friend and GVG partner, Derek Bittner. How are you, man?
I'm doing good for the most part.
I feel the weight of that pause.
Yeah, so Kai is on summer break. So that definitely makes things a bit tricky, but it is what it is. How are you doing?
I have had better weeks, my friend. I've not shared a lot about this, but I got sued, and
uh,
that is
yeah.
not fun.
No,
I
it
won't
wouldn't be.
I won't go into personal details about it here because this is like a very public way to talk about getting fucking sued, but I got sued for $11,000 and I
Ugh,
lost. So,
that's so dumb.
not a great week.
I know the full details, and I trust I can tell people at home. It is dumb. It is
Yes,
so dumb.
it's incredibly dumb. I will share the full details. I'll spill the tea on our Patreon exclusive podcast, The Week in Nintendo, which I'm recording tonight, so y'all won't have to wait long for it. But it's just one of those things where I do not want to publicly put details about people out there.
Right.
Because I don't know, man. Maybe they'd sue me. That would be bad. So I'm just not going to talk about it. But yeah, the story
I
is very silly,
yeah.
and it your boy did not come out on top of this one. So yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah. But there have been better weeks, but some cool
Sad thing
stuff
is, it
happened.
could have been worse.
Yes,
from
yes. In,
from
in
my
full
understanding.
context, it could have been worse. There I managed to work something out, and it ended probably as well as I could have hoped for it to end. But that's all I'll say here. Um,
Right.
but I mean, this is not a litigious podcast. This is a gaming
I mean,
podcast.
to make the obvious joke, you're not. At least you're not having the worst time in court this week.
Oh, that's true. That's true. At least one other person had it worse than me this week. I seemed like he had a rough day too. So, I mean, like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
you know.
so other than that, how is how has your week been?
Though litigation aside, uh, it's been a decent week. We got the state of play this week. I was really excited about that. I don't think that it was a super great state of play.
No.
But obviously, if you follow me on Twitter, you know that I found one bright spot in that state of play that I couldn't
Yes.
shut up about. Um, Astro looks utterly phenomenal. This is what I've been wanting from Team Asobi for the last 4 years since we got Astro's Playroom. I wanted a full-fledged game, and now we are getting it. And the reveal to release window is really small, which I'm very happy about.
hmm
Um, I couldn't have asked for this. It's precisely what I was hoping for when I reviewed Astro's Playroom in 2020, which doesn't sound like 4 years ago, but somehow it is. I was mentioning that the only thing I could have wanted was more of it. That I just wanted it to be a bigger game. And I ranked it up there with Wii Sports as like one of the greatest pack-ins of all time. Like I think it is an
Mm-hmm.
extremely effective pack-in, and on top of that, it's a really good game. And I'm gonna be real for a second. I actually think that Astro's Playroom is a better game than Wii Sports. If you
I
separate the
mean, as
technical
a game.
demonstration, yeah, exactly. So
uh,
I think as a tech demonstration, you could make the argument for Wii Sports being more effective, but
mhm.
as a game, Astro's Playroom is just way better.
Yeah, because let's be honest, the Astro's Playroom does a lot of cool things, showing off Sony's controller. Outside of the haptic triggers, can you remember any of the like? Do you remember any game really putting it to use? And even then, the haptic triggers don't get used that much.
Yeah, I mean, really, when it comes down to it, the DualSense, like you have the touchpad, the haptics, and then you have gyro, right? And
Mhm.
plenty of games use gyro, but it's not something you think about. You're not like there isn't the novelty. to motion control that there was with the Wii U. You know, the Wii U took motion control to places that it hasn't returned to since. And so I think that yeah, you're right. Like Astro showed off a whole lot of stuff you could do with the controller, but really Asobi's the only developer that put all of that together in a cohesive way in any one game.
Yeah, for sure. And I assume they're probably going to make use. I mean, you have to assume those flying sections, you're just tilting the PlayStation controller. So,
Oh yeah,
you know,
if you're flying on a PlayStation controller and you're not just mimicking the action in your hands, then they've made a serious error in judgment there. That looked
for
so
sure.
cool. I was surprised by how high speed those segments were.
They felt impactful. I think that's the thing because I watched it again because it was a little chaotic when I tried to watch it the first time, and watched it the second time just to go through and to see if anything hit a little bit better this time around, and not really. My feelings the initial time still sort of stayed the same, but it does strike you just how much more impactful Astro is compared to everything else because the music was great. Those little hits, just gameplay, all this different stuff. Here's boxing, here's flying, here's the PlayStation console. Here's your little like, hey, Sony might not remember these things, but Asobi does, and all these past PlayStation franchises. We'll represent Ape Escape and Parappa for you. Um, it just hits in such a great way. And I saw something on Twitter today, where people were looking at the like, dislike, and view rates of oh god, what was it called?
I was
The
struggling to
first game,
remember the name of it just now
the
too.
the Concord was the first game. About 50-50 Discord to like ratio, might be a little worse, and maybe, you know, 5 million views or something like that, maybe 10 million. Uh Astro, tons of likes, very little dislikes, and probably close to 50 million views.
Wow. Yeah, it makes sense. You know, I was going to mention that Concord was it was funny. So, for those of you that don't know, I wasn't able to make the State of Play live stream because I was working and work booked me in for a meeting like 20 minutes before. I was so upset because I was getting ready and then I got booked in for a meeting at work. I was just gonna like take my lunch break and do the State of Play with y'all and then go back to work. But they booked me in right at the last second, and so I was in the meeting watching the whole State of Play on mute, like with no sound. um, and I saw Concord and I tweeted out initially that I was like, "Oh, it's kind of like Guardians of the Galaxy. That looks cool." And I try really hard not to be snarky on social media without cause. And so
Mhm.
I literally had it in my drafts. It was like, hope it doesn't end up being another hero shooter that nobody asked for. And then I was like, I'm not gonna be rude. I'm just gonna delete it. And then right after they show the gameplay, and I'm like, oh man, like the
Oh, that's
worst
unfortunate.
I could have thought
So,
is real. Like I don't understand. I
well,
mean,
I can actually pretty explain this, but I do want to correct myself real quick. I said
oh, yeah.
million, it's thousand. It's
Oh,
it's
okay,
it's the cinematic portion of Concord is 133,000. The gameplay portion is 250,000. Astrobot is 550,000.
nice. I
Like
mean,
the
still a
only
huge.
thing view wise that came close to Astrobot is other than Monster Hunter was that Infinity Nikki,
Oh, okay,
which is just right behind it. So the three games that hit the most is Monster Hunter, Astrobot, and Infinity Nikki. Go
nice.
figure.
Okay, and that makes sense. I mean, I once I saw Monster Hunter, I was like, oh man, I know Brandon's got to be losing his mind right now. Like, um, for those of you that don't know, obviously Summer Game Fest is right around the corner. GVG will be at Summer Game Fest. And Brandon, the minute he found out we were going, that we were going to have boots on the ground at Summer Game Fest, he was like, please find out if Monster Hunter's there. He's like, if there's a Monster Hunter anything, I want to go. Which I don't know one way or the other, so don't ask me. But uh, yeah, our boy loves his series to death, and I was very
I think
happy
he's
to
just
see
been
it pop
analyzing
up.
it on his own time. No plans for videos or anything like that. He's just looking at it constantly.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he's poring over every detail of that trailer to find every monster, every weapon, every mechanic, and ID
whether
new
it's open
stuff.
world or what have you. Yeah, it's he's just all about it. But as far as Concord and the Marvel, what is it, Rivals or whatever the heck it was,
Yeah.
that also came out. So it is not a new thing for a certain genre to become very, very, very popular, have a big hit, and then there's a bunch of imitators trying to capture that popularity. It's happened since the beginning of gaming. Space Invaders was popular. Here's a bunch of Space Invaders clones and so forth. Um, but it takes much, much longer to make a game now. So this is just a reaction from publishers that, hey, Overwatch was really popular back in the day. All the, hero shooters are the next big thing. Well, thanks to COVID and everything else, it's only now that we're starting to get these hero shooters and the like. So
Yeah, that's true. We're seeing publishers that were chasing trends years ago that games that got hung up in development hell that are now starting to release. But yeah, I'm nonplussed by the
I
announcement of Concord. I struggle to remember the name, but
yeah.
it seemed like
The,
the reaction on Twitter was pretty unanimous that everyone's like, "What is this?"
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, and I will give him credit for this. It looks like it could be just dumb fun, knock off Guardians of the Galaxy. But hey, why not? Let's why not dive into that? You can still have fun with it. Um, and I do appreciate that they're focusing much more on story than Overwatch ever did, because the characters are what sold me on Overwatch. Why I picked it up, and then it was just there's just none of it there. So I was a little sad about it. Thankfully, the game was still fun at the time. But with this, they're saying that there would be weekly story segments that you get. So at least
Oh,
they're going to
okay.
keep you involved with these characters, introduce these characters, have some sort of aspect. They're not going to be anything action wise, but you get like little, uh,
I do
you
like that.
know, interactions and whatnot. And we don't know how long they are, but I can't imagine they're super long, or they're just preparing way ahead of time to have all these story beats happen. But still, it's an effort to put more hero in the hero shooter. So
Yeah, I could
that's
see
at
that.
least
One of the
nice.
things that really didn't land for me with Overwatch was that the lore was kind of delivered outside of the game for the most part. As
Mhm.
I mean, to be fair, that was second right behind just the incredibly toxic player base. But um, I don't know. It's just a genre that's never worked for me. I might give it a shot though. I am I don't want to reject anything out of hand without having tried it or played it myself. I usually try to
Mhm.
play as many games as I can get my hands on, whether that's streaming the game for a few minutes
I
or
mean,
whatever.
you never know what could happen. I doubt this will be this will be the same situation, but I don't remember us being too hyped about Helldivers before it came out.
I
I
was
don't think
about to
anybody was
say
too hyped about Helldivers before it came out, and well, there you go.
I was about to say the exact same thing that Sony proved me wrong once already with Helldivers. I've got 45 minutes of audio that I'm currently trudging through to develop into a video, in which I'll be honest, I just effusively praise Helldivers for the full 45. That'll be coming next week, but that's a great segue into what we've been playing. Derek, what have you been playing lately?
It's not too much beyond the typical streaming stuff I do. However, I have finally finished Yakuza 0. It took me a while, but I
Nice.
finally did it. And boy, that was a hell of an ending. Just really nice wrap up, really good character studies and stuff like that. Just really great time. And it says something when you finish a game that long, you're like, I could play the next one. Go
Yeah.
to Kiwami next. But I'm also like, no, I spent about close to 90 hours playing through that game.
Nice.
And I know they tend to be shorter from 1 to 4, but still, I'm gonna take a little break from Yakuza before I jump right in. But it was a heck of a good time, and I get why it has such a legion of fans, and it does make you very curious, because there's a lot of like hints to like the future that the characters go through. So you're like, okay, what's all that about? I want to see how this develops and all that. It seems like it's works very well as a game you play after those other games, but also to start it out with. It combines both pretty well because there's a lot of references you don't get, but it also serves as setup that's like, oh, that thing from Zero. I can very much see that um, situation.
Nice. Yeah, I need to get further into the Yakuza series. I've never played one that I disliked. I'm horrible about finishing them. I
They're
get about
long.
halfway through and I just drop them. And it's not
Mhm.
because I've lost interest. It's just something kind of floats in from the periphery and I'm like, new thing, and I just play that instead.
Mhm.
So I'd like to get through them, but kudos to you for finishing it. I really really wish that I could just find the time for that series or more time. You know, I've played a lot of the offshoot games. Like I
Mhm.
love the Judgment series. Those were
Oh yeah, I
fantastic.
forgot that's part of the series. Oh
Yeah,
my god.
you're gonna have to play those at some point too.
Yep. Oh my god.
But yeah, so I'm hopeful that I'll find, I've got this backlog of games that I always tell myself, "Oh, I'll play those during the holidays." And when the holidays roll around, there's invariably a new game that I end up
I,
playing. And that's
I
kind of
mean,
where I've
I'm
been.
still in Costa del Sol for 7 Rebirth.
Oh my
I,
gosh,
I
really?
I've just not had a chance to play. I'll get a little bit of free time, and I'll be honest, I play 14 because
Yeah.
it's easy to just jump in, jump out, and make a little bit of progress to prepare myself for the new expansion that's coming, especially because it comes out in less than a month now.
Oh wow.
So I'm nearly done with the main portion of the Endwalker the Endwalker expansion, but there's always like quests that come out in through various updates that lead up to the next expansion. So I have those yet, but I think I have like 75 ish quests to do yet before I'm fully caught up in 14, which is crazy. But
Yeah.
the
Man,
the story's good, man.
I
That's all I'll
really need
say.
to play it. I didn't dislike what I played. It's just so lately I've been stuck as with Bolt Mouse X in the chat, I've been stuck on the Thousand Year Door. I've been playing the remake of that.
Hmm.
And I feel kind of bad. I didn't realize how many people knew just how much I had to rush my way through the GameCube version for Game Club back at
Hmm.
GX. But most of the responses to my posts on Discord and tweets about playing the Thousand Year Door have just been like, "Oh man, you actually get to enjoy it this time," and I'm like,
Yeah, take
"Oh,
your time.
I had no idea that that story got that far out there." But yeah, so I've been playing. I'm in chapter 3 of Thousand Year Door currently.
Nice.
My big problem, and this is going to sound weird, is that I can't put it down, and so I will, the way my house is situated, my living area is upstairs and my content creation area is downstairs. But outside of this studio is where like my washing machine and my dryer are. So oftentimes what I'll end up doing is I'll put in a load of wash and then I'll go to play a game while I wait for it to get out so that I can put it in the dryer. And the other night I put a load of clothes in, started washing it. You know, that takes like 30 minutes to an hour depending. And next thing I know, it's like 2 in the morning, and those
Oh
clothes have been
no.
sitting in there forever. I was
Oh,
like,
that's not
"Hey, I
good.
beat chapter 2," and then I look at my phone. I was like, "And I'm done for the day. Like I need to go to bed." And
Oh, that's
so I find myself getting sucked into it, and I don't know if it's just because now I that's how I played it the first time, so I'm like I've just got to push through. But I was having a lot of fun. I was enraptured by this remake. It's so good. Seeing Thousand Year Door in full HD is just something special, and I really, 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 really hope that Nintendo starts mining the N64 and GameCube eras for more like whole cloth remakes like this. Because damn,
It'd be so
I didn't
nice.
realize how good some of these games could look.
Hmm. Oh man, there's so many possibilities they could really just get there. Revive and do something with. It'd be fantastic. I've not picked it up myself. I mean, I've dedicated myself that whenever I play like on my PS5, it is Rebirth, then 16
Yeah,
eventually. But
I
it's
hear
just
you.
the
My
way it is.
PS5 have become Helldivers machines. I
Yeah.
log in, I play Helldivers, I turn it off. Although I will say I've been playing a good chunk of Street Fighter 6 World Tour, and I've been
Oh yeah.
practicing with Akuma. I'm Platinum 5 with Akuma now.
Dang.
I'm trying to make my way up into the diamond ranks, but Akuma's been a delight. Like
I've heard.
I don't love the design, but I do love the mechanics of the character, and it's just he's so brutal in this game. Like his super art level 3 is he just punches you in the face really hard. Like that's all
Mhm.
it is. Like one punch right in the side of the head and you're out. So it's
And I
just
and I
been
loved how
fun.
I've not played him yet or anything like that, but I have seen how you get Shin Akuma and all the other crazy stuff they have going on. He seems like a great addition that people would want. This is definitely an Akuma people will enjoy. Um, and it's funny to me, just like, yes, teach me the Satsui no Hado. Yes, please.
Yeah,
as as another character. Um,
I've been
but
really into that with World Tour. I've been trying to figure out like getting Akuma is hard, like getting him in World Tour is kind of hard if you don't know. But then learning his moves, he you have to put in a lot of work to get all the moves from Akuma. I think I'm only halfway through. I have like 3 of his moves or something.
oh wow. And at least for you, if you're not a fan of the new design, the second design is pretty good.
Oh
Get the
yeah.
classic, so you got that. Um, I I'm more curious because ever since Street Fighter 6 was announced or anything like that, we've known the roster. We're finally in the unknown. So I'm curious what season 2 of the DLC is going to look like.
Yeah,
Let's
I'm
see if it
very
can me
interested to
playing it.
see if what I mean, I hope that we get some entirely new fighters. But I'm
You
also
mean the same
excited
way
to
as Aki, or are you talking more like returning fighters?
Oh no, I mean like the same way as Aki, like brand new
Okay.
whole cloth fighters. I mean, I hope that they kind of strike the same balance of new and returning fighters. You know,
Mhm.
give us some familiar faces. Like I can't believe Sagat didn't make the cut for season 1. Um, I
Well,
understand for narrative reasons why Bison isn't there, but Bison needs to show up at some point.
no, keep Bison away.
You think so?
Because then you just get stuck in the whole Shadowloo thing. Bring in the Illuminati from 3. Like I feel like there should be more 3 references.
That's true, but 5 did have quite a lot of presence of characters from 3. I mean, but
True, but we didn't get Makoto, so I'm hopeful that Makoto gets in there. Makoto or Dudley.
that's true. Oh, Dudley is we're on the same page with that one. I love Dudley. I'm not a big Ed fan. I don't like that our boxer representation is like a psycho power weird guy. Like that's
And from what I understand, Ed's not really much of a boxer.
yeah, he doesn't play like Balrog or Dudley, but he does have like boxing style moves. Like he uses a flicker jab. But he has projectiles and stuff. It's very not traditional to what you'd consider being a boxer in Street Fighter canon. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, I agree. Sakura would be cool to have back. Like there's a lot of characters you can mine, but I do hope that they make original characters for this. I finally
Hmm.
beat last night. I beat Shang Long in the World Tour mode. Who's like level 90
Oh
and just
God.
ridiculously hard. But if you unlock Akuma's Hadoken, which he can charge into like a flaming Hadoken, AI doesn't know how to deal with it. Like you could just
Oh
spam
really?
those and beat anyone in World Tour mode. Yeah.
I,
Like
I
I
I'm.
think they forgot to program a counter for that move into the game.
You know who they should bring from Street Fighter 3 just to mess with people? Bring back either Necro or 12.
Ooh, those would be good ones. Like I was kind of sad that with all the 3 love that we got in Street Fighter 5 that we didn't get Necro 12 or Remy. Remy would have been a fun
Yeah.
one too, just like Guile but with command inputs instead of charge. That that's an unstoppable character. uh, having like a flash kick that you don't have to charge up at all. But yeah, I would be interested to see those. I think that oh gosh, which one is it? Is it No, it's Necro. Necro's or no, no, no. I'm thinking 12, the one is all stretchy. Yeah.
Yeah,
12
is it
12 would be a real
isn't
interesting one.
Neko stretchy? I've not played a ton, but I thought both of them were kind of stretchy. It's
Necro
weird.
kind of sort of, but 12 like his whole body is malleable. Like he can change into things.
Right.
Whereas with Necro, he kind of sort of is stretchy. Like he can pull his mouth open and he can kind of sort of stretch his limbs like Dulcim, but he also has electric powers like Blanca.
Hmm. Oh, speaking of electric, just I can't believe she has not returned since 4. Blanking on her name. Like the main girl that they kept
Are you
showing
thinking
that like the
Laura?
no, not the Laura is from 5. Sea Viper. Thank you,
Oh,
Caitlin.
Sea Viper, right.
Sea Viper hasn't been back since 4, and she was a big deal
And she was
in
referenced
4.
quite heavily in the story mode in 5. So it was really weird that they didn't bring her back. I think there were initially plans to include her in 5, and for whatever reason, they scrapped them. But I would love to see her
Mm.
make a comeback in 6. I mean,
I
Sea Viper, Ibuki, Sakura, give me all of
I
them.
mean, I was an Ibuki main in 4, so yes, Ibuki. I will take Ibuki. Although if I had to choose a lineup for season 2, I'd go um just for the variety, Makoto, Sea Viper, um a new character, and let's go with yeah, Sakura,
Ooh, interesting.
just to have a classic in there.
So I would go Dudley, Goken, a new
Oh wow.
character, and Ibuki. Those
There
would be my picks. I think Dudley needs his any Street Fighter game is made better with Dudley. Ibuki is like one of my favorite rushdown characters of all time. I think
Oh,
that
she's great. I
she's so
love
good.
her moves, but
And
and it'd be be cool to get her. That's the exciting thing about her and Sakura is that their stories can continue beyond them being just teenagers.
yeah, I would like to see an adult version of Sakura that doesn't work in a game center. That would
Yeah,
be also she kind of got tied up in I think the story of 5, she got tied up with Dan and Blanca. Like they became homies.
I thought they became homies in 4 or something like that because they both became
Yeah, they were
Dan
disciples
students.
of Dan's, or at least
I,
Dan thought they were.
I feel like every season will have at least one Shoto. So we can only have so many because we got Sakura, we got Sean, we got um, Dan, Goken.
Yeah, that's true. I hope that we get I hope that we get Dan if he returns. I want him to be like a full-on joke character the way he was in Street Fighter Alpha, like where mechanically he's also a joke. Like you're
Hmm.
essentially showing off your skill by beating anybody with Dan. Where because in 4 and wait, was Dan's not in 5, right? No.
Yeah, he was DLC in 5.
You're right. So in 4 and 5, he's actually viable. And I that's not what Dan's supposed to be about. Like he's supposed to be useless. And if you beat an opponent with him, you're just kind of flexing on them at that point. I want that version of Dan back where like his Gadoken has no range, his Koryukin goes like 1 pixel over. Like you have to be extremely precise to hurt anybody with Dan. That's the Dan that I want. But I also think that 4 leaned a little too heavy on the joke characters, so the break's been nice because 4 had El Fuerte, they had Rufus, who was
Oh
clearly, I
God.
mean, I don't necessarily agree with it, but he was meant to be a joke. You had Dan, maybe that was it, but 3 joke characters in a single Street Fighter roster is a lot. um,
Yeah.
but yeah, oh,
Um,
Hakan, who was always slathering himself in oil and had the
I liked Hakan though.
I
Hakan was
thought
fun.
Hakan was interesting. His hair was very weird, and
It was a cap, I thought, or maybe not. I don't know.
I can't remember. Dino Pulse Data, you are correct. Actually, Dan is an SNK joke character. He's referencing Robert Garcia, who was an obvious ripoff of Ryu and Ken in King of Fight in Art of
Wait,
Fighting.
no, Robert Garcia, was it Robert Garcia? I thought it was always Ryoma who was the obvious ripoff.
So Rio and Robert were the Shotos of Art of Fighting. Rio was the super obvious ripoff because he dressed just like Ryu and Ken, except he had a undershirt. Whereas Robert Garcia dressed more like an American, well, American, like a Japanese idea of an American from the 90s. So he wore like a vest and jeans. Like it was awkward, but essentially what they did was Dan was an amalgamation of both Rio and Robert. He had the face and the hair of Robert and the outfit of Rio. And
Ah,
they the first time we ever saw him was Sagat just palming the guy's head and he was knocked out, like his body was limp. So that was kind of like a shot across the bow of SNK back in the day. And then when Alpha came out, they just included him and made him intentionally super crappy to just make fun of SNK. And actually, the Gadoken, Dan's one-handed projectile, is exactly the projectile from Art of Fighting that both of those characters use. They would push out a one-handed fireball, where so they made his just go like 3 pixels out and then putter out.
oh wow.
Yeah. So
I
I
had no idea that
appreciate the
he was an
pettiness.
amalgamation. But yeah, I see. I'm looking at Robert Garcia now, and yeah, the hair is a total match.
Yeah, exactly. So Capcom knew what they were doing. They were like, we're going to take your two best boys and make them the worst guy in our game.
It looks like they gave him like a Louis Sarah goatee and mustache for later King of Fighters, though.
Yes, yes, they
Just
did.
trying to separate them. Don't know if
There,
it looks great, but there it is.
yeah, some of those SNK character designs did not age super well. They were like incredibly 90s. And so as they try to like fix them up for later generations, they just start to look weird. Um, but yeah, Ryo Sakazaki is a good one. And honestly, I would kill for another Capcom versus SNK game. If
Oh
Capcom
man.
and SNK could just find a way to make a CVS 3, I would I would pay a very high price if I could afford it. At this point, that's a question.
Maybe it'd be more likely if both Fatal Fury, if Fatal Fury does well as well. Get that
Yeah,
team up and get both
and
characters into each series, both fans into each series. Yeah.
the new Fatal Fury is a very exciting prospect for me because it's not just Fatal Fury. I believe it's being billed as Mark of the Wolves too, or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a direct follow up to Garo,
Yeah, which
Mark of the Wolves.
is
So
essentially like in Street Fighter, the peak of animation, or at least what most fans consider the peak, is Street Fighter 3. Like that's where pixel art
mhm.
just was kind of at its best, and Garo was that, but for the Fatal Fury series, where they just went all out on animation,
Oh,
made everything look
I've
incredible.
seen clips of Garo, and holy crap!
Yeah, it's one of the only remaining Xbox Live like from the 360 games that I still have installed on my Series X over here. I'll pick it up and play it every now and then. It's wild how much effort SNK put into that.
Mhm.
But yeah, that's what's going on in the world of gaming this week. I think has other
Is
news happened? Like I've been
are,
kind of distracted.
Yeah, exactly. We had the PlayStation event. We for as far as Tekken, we got Lydia coming to Tech
Oh,
as
I
our
need to
next
play
team.
more Tekken. I know Wataniac's gonna punish me for that, but
I'm trying to think if there's any other major news that happened otherwise. Um, there is that. I mean, that's not gaming related, but that is exciting. Have you seen Godzilla minus one yet, uh, uh, Steve?
have I seen it? This is gonna sound so bad, but okay. Admittedly, not the world's most well versed Godzilla fan. I believe minus one, and this like the way I would reference this without spoiling anything are isn't there like Godzilla 0 and Godzilla minus 1 and those are different films?
Yes, Godzilla minus one is a very standalone movie. You could go into this one blind and be
Godzilla
fine.
minus 1, is that the one that takes place like during wartime Japan, like in
It takes
wartime?
place in post-war
Post-war
wartime
Japan,
Japan.
but way back
Yes.
in the past. Okay, so
Yes.
yes, I have seen it then.
Okay. Because it comes out on Netflix tomorrow.
Oh man, absolutely worth it. I saw it in the theater, obviously.
I did, yeah, too.
My so one of the things that it's weird. I living near your family. I haven't done that for most of my adult life. Uh, so I'm not used to people just hitting me up and being like, "Hey, want to go see a movie?" Like once I became a dad, movies were a thing of the past for me. Like going to the movies, unless it was like Frozen, I
Mhm.
wasn't gonna go see it. So I missed
You
a
know what?
lot of stuff.
I would take that at this point because I've I have not gone to the theater in so long. I'd love to see Furiosa. I've heard good things, but I've just not
Yeah, I want to
I've not
see it
gone.
really badly. I basically wait for people to invite me out. Although I will admit, like this is such a sad story, but whatever. So back a couple years ago, when I was living in the old house, I had a date and I bought us tickets to go see Thor: Love and Thunder, and she just stood me up. Like I got to the movie theater and I was like texting her. I was like, "Hey, where are you?" And nothing, ghosted. And I was like, I was thinking about it. I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna turn around and just go home." I drove like 30 minutes to get to this theater, but then I was looking at the ticket. I was like, "It's a Marvel movie. And I already got somebody taking care of the kids. I'm just gonna go.
Yep.
Like I'm just gonna
I
go
just
in and
got
sit
screw it.
alone." And you know, it wasn't that bad. I had to get over
Yeah.
the stigma of going alone, but when I did, I was like, "This is fine." I
Yeah, when I got over that stigma, I was like, okay, I want to see this movie. I'm going to go see this movie. I don't care.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing for me because I've always considered the movies to be like a group activity, but I was like, I was already, I'm already $40 in. I've bought two movie tickets. I'm seeing this,
I mean,
and
it
it
was one
was
of those
delightful.
things when somebody pointed out later, it's like, yeah, you're going with a group, but do you really talk during the movie?
Right. That's the funny thing. It's not like you're really socializing at the movies. You're sitting and hopefully eating something, you know, and just watching. It's like you're watching TV with 100 other people in the same room, but you don't want them to disturb you. And once I got over that, yeah, I've been to a few movies solo, but now it's like I'm used to, like, a member of my family will just call me and be like, "Hey, let's go see this. Hey, let's go to the movies and watch this," which honestly is kind of nice because then I have that impetus to go outside and go, spend an absurd amount of money to watch a movie for 2 hours. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other bit is in this economy, movies are so damn expensive. Like I
I
don't care how
know.
much you make, you're getting ripped off at the movies.
Probably. I have not looked at going to a movie. I haven't looked at going to a movie since -1, so I have no idea what the cost actually is anymore.
Yeah.
Let me
Well, that's why I wait for a group now. Like I'm over the whole stigma, but I'm like, I don't want to spend $40 to go see a movie alone. Like, it's like because I mean, I'll admit I'm the sucker. Like I don't plan ahead. I'm very much like on a whim when I go see a movie. So I'll just happen to be out of the house and I won't have anything I need to do that day. So I'll just be like, oh, let me go pop in at the movies, which means of course I'm going to buy the ticket and I'm going to be like, well, I'm going to be there for a couple hours. I want to drink something. I want to eat
Uh-huh.
something. And then before I know it, I'm like $45 deep and I'm watching, you know, Mad Max or something, and I'm like,
Right.
could have done this at home for $3. Like,
Yeah.
but
So I'm looking, and honestly, these prices aren't too bad in my opinion. Maybe I just have since I'm probably not I don't know where I'm at, but um, so the most common movie theater we at least used to go to is one of those that includes you get food there.
yeah,
Like
I love
you sit
those.
there and yeah, it's great. You just it's like dinner and movie right there, and get some food and all that. So the ticket prices I'm looking here don't seem that bad on for a for a Friday, a weekend evening. It looks to be about $9 a person.
That's really good for like normally I go for like the matinee just
Mhm.
so I can get in real cheap. Like I'm like Saturday at 10:30 in the morning. But
Yeah.
um those ones where they serve food, the thing that I find generally is that the tickets are cheaper because they're hoping that you'll just keep buying concessions. Like, especially
Mhm.
because they're like, order from your seat. And I'm like, don't mind if I do. And then I'm like, next thing I know, I'm ordering like three chicken strips for 18.95. And I'm like, God damn. Like,
Yeah, I
I'll take
like
a $6 Coke with that, please.
yeah, so just on what they have in their highlights here is like, ah, cool. I can get the Italian chicken melt. That's $13. You know what? I feel like dessert, so I'm gonna get the Reese's peanut butter pie. That's $11. And you know what? I really could go for a drink, and I'm already treating myself, so let's get a cocktail as well. And that's another $10.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, like, oh god, I've spent $50, most of it on food.
Oh yeah. One thing I miss about Arizona, living there was, for those of you that know, my day job is IT related. And when you work at the level I work at in corporate infrastructure IT, you get a lot of vendors who take you out to dinner. Like
Mhm.
they want to sell you something, so they invite you to a dinner. So we're constantly getting slapped with like, "Hey, come out here and we'll treat you to whatever you want." And more often than not these days, because they can get a lot of us in a room at the same time, it's a movie. And so they always pick one of those movie theaters with like that serve food and alcohol, and they're just like, "Order whatever you want." And I'm like, "Don't mind if I do." They're like,
That
I'm like, you are going to spend far more than you're going to get from me because I can tell you you're getting nothing. I'm
mhm.
not even
Uh,
allowed to make that decision that you
the
want me to make.
the one time I got treated to something like that was when I got invited to that Nintendo event where they were trying to show off Sushi Striker, and they had it set up in a New York restaurant that actually had one of those conveyor belt sushis going
Oh,
around at all times. And I at the time I wasn't even that huge of a sushi guy. I like had just started to get into it, and I think I got like 10 to 15 plates of sushi just
nice.
because I was like, I'm not going to get to do this again. I'm going to try it all. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to try this out. I
Yeah,
enjoyed the game. I think the game's still kind of fun, but nobody
gaming
remembers
events
it.
usually do have some kind of food and drink, which is really nice. The
Mhm.
one time that backfired on me was
Oh
when
no.
they did the preview for the Switch in New York. Like
Mhm.
they had the media. Well, it was kind of a weird thing. It was like media, but then they kept it open afterwards and they let fans come in after the media was done. And
Oh.
I was in the media wave, fortunately, and I was going in a I didn't have time for breakfast. I was running late and I was like, "Oh, it's Nintendo. It's a new console. They'll have food." I was like, "They always have food at preview events, but they'll definitely have food at this one." And this I don't know if you went. I imagine you did, Derek, because it was like right in your neck of the woods, and it was in the run up to the Switch launch. Like it was.
I did not go to that one. I was passed over.
Oh man, that's brutal. That's brutal considering you were right there.
Mm,
That's I come to
yeah.
think of it. Obviously that was
For the
before
for the really big ones, I did not get sent there.
Oh,
It's
that
like
is that is just mean. I
so
so
I did not get to try Switch beforehand.
I literally brought like three friends with me, and I was just like,
Oh wow.
yeah, they're with me, and they let them all in.
Oh
So
wow.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Eh.
Um, but I just assumed they'd have food and there was nothing. There was no water, there was no food, and I just remember coming out of the Switch event and I was like shaking. And people were like, "It was that good?" I was like, "No, I'm just gonna pass out. Like I haven't eaten today."
They usually at least have a small snack
Yeah,
there,
I
but
was like, "I
apparently
need a
nothing.
donut, man." Like somebody just fix me. Not Nintendo's fault, by the way. Like I
No,
should
no.
have planned better. You should never assume people are gonna feed you when they don't tell you they're going to. I just made a stupid mistake, but yeah, it's always interesting to go to those preview events, and they've kind of it's funny because I now look at preview events from when I started in games as being like the good old days when things were looser, and that's nothing compared to like the 80s and 90s where they were like,
Oh,
hey,
yeah.
here's some drugs. Like, you know?
Man, I know Ash got to experience them a bit, but those early years of E3, that would have been something to see.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because the way I describe Summer Game Fest is that it kind of reminds me of a less problematic version or a unproblematic version of the early years of E3, where it's like there's still very much like a party atmosphere to it, but people aren't doing wildly inappropriate stuff. But like
Uh,
when I went to Summer
uh,
Game Fest, I was like, this is so much fun. Like this is way better than E3. And if I didn't have plans to go on holiday this year, I would be back there this year. Ash is going in my place, but Summer Game Fest is way better than E3 ever was. Like it feels
Wow.
like you're both working, but you're also on a vacation, which is kind of nice. So hopefully,
I
Derek, we'll
just
get you out there one of these days. Like you have to trust me; it would be such a wildly different experience to what you're used to.
I yeah,
You might
mine
actually enjoy it.
I mean, I enjoyed my time at E3. It's just a lot of it was spent behind the scenes making sure stuff got uploaded and
Yeah.
all that. It's just the way it was.
We'll have
But
to rectify that at some point, but it's coming that time. I like these more conversational episodes. By the way, this feels
yeah.
like we've just been hanging out. This is nice. Uh, and if you think it's nice, let us know. We could make more episodes like these. I promise. Um, but we do have an obligation to fulfill, and that is, of course, to our producers, executive producers, and above, and that is that you get to submit topics every week for us to answer here on GVGcast. You can head over to patreon.com/gvgaming if you'd like to support us and find out how you can get cool perks like those. A little bit of inside baseball. We have a whole line of Patreon merch perks coming up that are currently being designed by our graphic artist Lon Lon, who's doing a lot of cool, like game themed GVG merch that'll never see the light of day outside of our Patreon. So if you want to get out ahead of those before we drop them, patreon.com/gvgaming. But for now, let's answer your questions. And Derek, why don't we start with yours?
Sure. Mine comes from Benji Bear Pup saying, a bit of a multi-parter for you. How often do you guys go hunting for retro games? Any awesome retro game stores near you? Also, have you ever had to collect a game piece by piece? Say you bought the manual, only then the game and case came later or in any order. Finally, do you leave the price stickers on your games? Hope you lovely guys are having an amazing week. So I used to. I used to do a bit of retro hunting and build out all those old games. I had a lot of fun with that. And then the market went to shit. This is the best way to put it. The two things I would most often do is there was a retro game store near where I used to live. I don't there's one around me now. I just don't go to it too often because, well, retro game prices have gone to shit.
Yeah.
They are so expensive for certain ones. Um, but yeah, there was a smaller one that I would go to check out. See, I found some good stuff. That's how I got my. I only had Xenosaga 1 for the longest time, and I saw 2 and 3 at one point. And I picked that up, and I actually for a little bit needed when I was laid off from my old job before officially getting with GX. Um, I worked at the I decided to go to the store. Crap place to work. Guy was one of those, the boss was one of those that decided to be like promise the world but does nothing. You know, those types like, yeah, if you work hard and do this whole thing, you can get I'm looking for like a managerial partner, help me out and make good money. I'm like, and then you get there, it's like, oh, he told that to everybody. So it's like, but I will say, one of the nice things to come out of it was, well, one thing that just blew my mind. The guy came in, and this was around the time of the PlayStation 4, was pretty much new. And a guy came in with a ton of classic stuff. His NES, his Super Nintendo, just a stack of old classic games. And he's like putting them in to trade in. And I'm like looking at all these, and here's the original Final Fantasy with manual. Here's such and such, just tons and tons of just classic games. And as I'm doing this, I'm like literally just setting aside, setting aside, setting aside. These are mine. Just literally claiming the big ones uh, and all that. He got crap from us. Like he really did not get that much. It was just enough for him to get what he wanted, which was a PlayStation 4 and a copy of Killzone
Oh,
from the place for the launch title. That's what he
oh,
wanted. He traded in all these classics for a PS4 with Killzone. And I'm like, oh my
woof.
God, thank you, but you're an idiot.
Yeah, that is wild. Uh, so to answer my answer to your question, Benji, I have evidence. I brought evidence. So I do keep my price tags on my retro
Oh,
games. I can't
oh,
believe
I
this is
don't. I get
retro
that.
now.
I get that off. I wanted.
Well, so I bought this brand new when it came
Mhm.
out in Japan, at the launch of the N64, and I just kind of liked the idea that this was proof that it was sitting on a shelf in Japan 25 years ago and somebody got it for me and shipped it to me. Um, but I will say I have a weird thing about boxes and manuals and um, repackaging. No
Mhm.
judgment to those who are okay with it, but for me, I'm like, this isn't the manual that shipped with this game. And obviously, there's no way for me to verify that, but I'm just like, I hodgepodge this together. I didn't find a complete one. I put it together myself, and to me, that's just not the same as finding one out in the wild that is all together still. And I'd rather take one that's like, I mean, my Pilot Wings has seen better days now. It's all dinged up because I've moved. I mean, I've had it since I was 15. So it's been around. Um and I've
I
it's seen some love over the years, but I have this kind of just I would to me retro game collecting is more about, I guess because I myself am retro, I'm like I carry this copy of Pilot Wings around with me because it's the one I've had. And
mhm.
honestly, the more smashed up it gets, I'm not going to replace it just cuz I love that one. It's been mine. Um and so I kind of look for these when I go out hunting for retro games, I try to find ones that are similarly I'll either go for, if I care a lot about the game, I want one that is complete in box. But if it's just something that I'm curious about, I can take a cartridge if it's cheap enough. Like,
Mhm.
I bought here we go. Somehow I've got these at hand. When I went to John's wedding, I bought Global Gladiators, the McDonald's game for the Sega
Oh my
Master System
god.
because I'd never seen or heard of it, and I was like, "That's interesting." So I got it for £8, and that was my souvenir from John's wedding.
Well, there you go.
But
I see. I've never worried about box and manuals when I'm buying stuff. Just having the game is enough for me. Um, and honestly, it kills me that I don't have certain things complete in box because I should. But old NES games came in cardboard,
yep,
and as you know, so what do you do with toys? I kept the manual. I tossed out the box because you didn't need it at the time. Like, why would you need it? So that kills me in retrospect. It's like, oh my god, I could
well,
be in much better shape for that. But it's the way it is. And I eventually did, like, as of Game Boy Advance, I kept it at that point. It's like because I realized
exactly.
when
Once
that all happened.
people will shame us for having done that when we were kids, but at the time there was no history of gaming to lean back on to understand
No.
how people would treasure these later on. Like, these were marketed to us kids as toys. And what did you do when you got a toy? You ripped open the box, took the toy out, threw the box away. And
Yep.
so games were very much like, here's a new toy for you. This is a toy. And your parents didn't want you keeping those damn boxes, like,
No, it's like it's just
you know,
taking up room.
yeah, and Nintendo themselves kind of encouraged us to get rid of them because they gave us sleeves or covers for every game we got. NES and Super
Yeah.
NES had
And
covers.
and you had those cartridge slots, so they, like, you to hold them, like you just pull it out one and put it's what they have for like CD cases now, just for cartridges for the NES. They specifically had those, so that's I used them.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't sink in for me until we started getting CD based games where I'm like, oh, we should keep these. Like,
Yeah.
like, if I
The-
remember as a kid, like if
the-
I saw another kid who had like one of those CD binders full of their games, I'm like, I'm judging you so hard.
oh, I same. I judge hard, but it was the Saturn and PS1 that really taught me, like, oh yeah, I should probably keep these because, well, the game case kept the CD and it gave the manual was just served as the front cover as well. So
Yep,
bam, all
exactly.
good, all good there.
It's
Uh,
weird for people who grew up after that to understand, but it was a major like cultural shift in how we took care of our media. Once CDs came out, we were like, "Oh, you can't just take these out and leave them laying around." Like, everybody who had a VCR or an NES, like, they're familiar with the idea of a raw cartridge just hanging out somewhere. You just
yeah.
pick it up, blow on it, and throw it in your console and play. Um, so yeah, for me, yeah, retro games, I can, if it's a cart based game, I'll just get the cart. For anything past the introduction of CDs, I try to find,
Mhm.
as complete as I can. But
The
yeah.
the last time I did any kind of retro hunting, one of the games I was really searching for a long time was Skies of Arcadia Legends on the GameCube, and um, the first time I found it, the only copy they had was one that was complete in box with the wrapping still on,
Oh,
and I'm
wow.
like, and I literally said I can't buy this because to me that is a special like keepsake at that point. If it's in it has the plastic one, that is extremely valuable. Somebody wants that specifically. I want to play this thing. I'm going to take it out of that plastic. So no, I am not buying this. Unfortunately, I did later find one that I could you know get and have like the actual game and not it be in plastic and all that. But yeah, I'd say the games I probably spent the most on for retro collecting was Skies of Arcadia Legends, Mega Man Legends 2,
Ooh,
and Suikoden 2. Um,
nice.
that
I've
was all those were definitely over $100.
Yeah, I've got a few. I picked up this is so weird and I didn't realize I did it at the time. Um but back in like 2018 or 2019, right after I joined GX, I picked up a complete in box in the plastic copy of Mario 2. And that was like a treat to myself. And I held on to it. I put it in a hard plastic case so that the box wouldn't get damaged. And then when I moved in 2020 during the pandemic, I lost it. And I happened to stumble across another copy, complete
Mhm.
in box, in the plastic in a different store. And I
Oh
bought
wow.
that. I spent $150 on one of them and like 120 on the other. And now I have both of them because I found the other one and I don't know what to do about it.
Well, I guess you sell the other one because the way prices are going up. But
Yeah, I just might, but those were like a real kind of treat yourself kind of thing. I just really, I love Mario. Mario 2 was my was really where I got interested in the franchise. So that'll always be like a special one to me. So I wasted a bunch of money on that. Don't do what I did. Don't buy Mario 2 for $150. And if you do,
play
open it.
so.
Like play it. Oh, buy it if you're going to play it. Don't be like me. Oh my god, I was just so terrified. For my mom has a key to my house so that she can come in if she needs to, and I gave her permission to before the podcast, but I just heard someone walking in my house and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm alone. Who is this?" But anyway, thank you for the question, Benji. I'm not going to die.
No.
My question this week comes from Cutie Caitlin, who writes, "All right, let's settle this. What generation of consoles is the Switch part of? Is it in the same generation, Gen 9, as PS4, Xbox One, and Wii U, or Generation 10 along with the PS5 and Xbox Series X/S? Personally, it'd feel like including it with Wii U would be like including the Dreamcast as part of the Saturn N64 PS1 generation, and that's weird. Thoughts?" Um, I'm on the Gen 10 train for this because, like you mentioned, Caitlin, Nintendo had a Gen 9 entrant, and that was the Wii U. Whether or not we like it, that's another story. But I think that gamers in general, broadly speaking, are very weird about generational lines and divisions. I mean, all you have to do is look at the fact that it's 2024 and there are still people that call the PS5 next gen, a 4-year-old console.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah, I'd say Gen 10. For me, it's just a simple, what followed what, and this was
it,
Nintendo's 10th gen offering. I think they just I understand why it's confusing because it launched a full 3 years before what is broadly considered the 10th generation of consoles, but it doesn't change the fact that that's just Nintendo's entry into that market. Because I don't think anybody would say,
uh, real quick, we got some generations wrong.
"Oh, sorry."
PS4 and Xbox One was actually Gen 8. PS5, Xbox Series X is Gen 9.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just reading off of what I've got
So
in front
so
of me.
technically, according to you, the Switch successor would be Gen 10.
Yes, that's correct. Switch successor would be Gen 10, and it will obviously start off with a similar crazy lead to PS5 and Series X. I mean, people need to remember that generation doesn't mean it's not a technological generation. It is just what Nintendo is putting forward as their successor to their previous console, right? So we're talking about, because if you went technologically, then Nintendo is still very much in the Wii U generation, right? But if you're talking about just chronologically, which is how I view generations, you know,
Mhm.
which is the way we view generations of humans and everything else, then chronologically it's their ninth gen console.
It
Uh,
it it
because
used to be easier just because, for a while there it was, this is the 8-bit games. These are the 16-bit games. Here's the 32-bit games.
right,
Um,
exactly.
Although interestingly, in the 32-bit era, that's when N64 came out. But again, if you look at it, got NES for third gen, Super NES for fourth, N64 for fifth, GameCube, and so forth. So I think you are right by that idea that it is likely that the Switch is a ninth gen entry. But my God, it's weird because it came out in 2017, 3 years before the Series X and PS5.
Right. And the logical continuation of that argument, which is being made for me in chat, is that if you go by technological prowess, then you have to go all the way back to the Wii and say that that was a GameCube era machine. Because,
That's true.
while Sony and Microsoft were finally making the leap to HD, Nintendo took a whole generation to make a buffer for themselves. And that's really where they shifted backwards, so to speak, technologically, where they just introduced modest gains and novel controls to then set themselves up for what would ultimately, it's so funny to think, but the Wii ultimately laid the groundwork for the Switch, where Nintendo just said, you know what, we're not going to compete on horsepower anymore. And we'll
Mhm.
just let you guys have your thing. We're going to do this whole other weird thing. And, you know, some 15 years later, it finally paid off. And they're like, oh, look at us now. Now we've got a portable that does all this cool stuff because we stopped worrying about power. And,
That's
yeah,
indeed
you
playing
know
the
what,
long
Dreamer?
game.
That's calling it a lateral step is a better way to describe it.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It was all about what the Wii. I, it was all about what the Wii offered because it did offer different experiences and it was slightly more powerful. But yeah, um, it's fascinating to just look at the how the generations are split. Like the first Odyssey primary console was like back in the Odyssey and the Coleco.
Yeah,
It's 2600 and television was second gen.
yeah,
So
it's interesting to think about because I mean, realistically, if we look back, honestly, the gaming community has this interesting like conception about what generations mean. This might be a really good video premise. Like, what gaming generation are we actually in? Um,
I mean, I like the idea because if you look, it's very simply put. Like this new Sega console came out here. This is the next generation. This new Nintendo console came out. This is the next generation. So it makes sense to me.
yeah, I agree. It's really interesting to see what kind of came out, like what a crop of consoles looks like. But yeah, I think the Switch is very obviously part of the PS5 and Series X generation. PS4 and Xbox are dead, or PS4 and Xbox One are dead. PS5 and Series X have clearly been the front runners. Nintendo just kind of hopped in the middle of the gap between generations and decided to start there. And I don't think I would have predicted back in 17 that we'd be going on our eighth year with this thing and that it would still be the main one. That
Mhm.
we wouldn't even have seen the Switch successor. But I do think that Nintendo has kind of disrupted the generational timing of console releases because I mean, if you look at Microsoft and Sony, their plans are very obviously in sync with each other.
Very much so.
They released the PS5 and the Xbox within a week of each other, and they did the same with the PS4 and the Xbox One within a week of each other. So It's an interesting like direct competition that those two have, whereas Nintendo has just decided that they don't need to be beholden to, the timing of their competitors. And I think that's the smarter move, but we're going to see that Switch 2 is going to be, it'll be the first 10th generation console,
Mhm.
because if you start comparing technology to technology, it just doesn't make sense. Nintendo kind of exists outside of that comparison at this point.
I mean,
Um,
the GameCube was more powerful than the PlayStation 2. It did not matter.
yeah,
It didn't just didn't sell enough. Granted, Nintendo was still profitable in that because, boy, they are really good at making sure they get the most out of their systems and don't spend too much. They rarely sell at a loss to begin with, and that definitely didn't happen in the Wii. With the Wii selling as well as it did, based off old GameCube tech, boy, they were just making bank at that
yeah.
point.
Yeah, they were. So Nintendo really managed to pull something off. They've really positioned themselves extremely well. But long way of answering your question, Caitlin. Yeah, it's a ninth gen console, apparently. Sorry for the confusion with ninth and 10th and 8th, but it's a ninth generation console. And now you've inspired me to to probably make something discussing what consoles fit into what generations. But yeah, thank you so much for the question. I think that's going to wrap us up for this episode of the GVG cast. Of course, I'm going to buy time while I look for my list. But you know that we can't make this show happen without each and every one of you. Your contributions are what help keep the lights on here at GVG. And of course, we have to give a special thank you to our patrons at the producer tier and above. Y'all make this show happen every week. We can't thank you enough. Truly, your support means the world to us. But we do have another group. If your name's not on this list, it may just be on the next one. And those wonderful, lovely, fine folks and other adjectives that our boy Ash would use to describe you, they include Brandon Bovia, Cutie Caitlin, Fangs, Z Patty, Sky Blue Flames, Eastman 23, Adam O'Sullivan, Richard Herrera, Logan Daniel, The D-Pad, Blake, Joy Content, Angel Martinez, Vedron, Joshua Hunter, Benny Yao, Azran127. Oh, I lost my place. There we go. Black King, Geeky Griffin, Wataniac, Top Dog 23100, Young Ben Kenobi, Andrew Medeiros, Darchi, Becca, Esax08, Michael McCaw, Matthew Wong, Goron Amber CPHT, Too Much Spaghetti, Bane 400, Ascaron 809, Reoner, Benji Bearpup, The Game Orb, Super Gamer Dude 101, Ravelox, my mom. Hi, Mom. Thanks for coming by, Mom. You scared the living daylights out of me, Mom. Darksteel01, Jason Uloa, Jaden Buck, Cystic Warrior 29, Derek, Colin, Blaystar 25, Twilord, Mumbling Yeti, Cameron Sharp, Keel, Hustlebun, Noah Fitterer, Calvin Atkinson, Brainchild, Jim Wakelin, Andy Mine P, Aramis Baramis, Lord Metarex, Blaze Collard, Eric, Cat Evie Person 5, Mega Beatman True Blue Reviews, Ryan Hanley, Somnia, The Game Jamie, Zombie Joe, and last but not least, and I know it's not up there on the list, but I haven't forgotten you, Marathon Max. Thank you all so much for watching. This concludes episode 105 of the GVG cast. We'll be back next week with the next episode, 106. I won't be on it. I will be away. And Ash will be at Summer Game Fest, I think. So we'll let you all figure that out. But until next
We
time, folks,
I think
good
Summer
night.
Game Fest is also having a presentation, maybe
Yes,
then.
they are. They are.
So
And we'll
we'll figure that out.
probably we'll figure it out. We'll let you know. Stay tuned to our socials for information on that. But until next time, folks, we're gonna head over to our post show. If you're a patron, you know where to catch us. Until then, good night and good vibes. Bye, everyone.
Bye.